Welcome to the third installment of the KHS Grad Student Life podcast, where we're featuring the experiences of KHS grad students, both who are finished, but also who are going through the process right now, and to learn about what some of their experiences are like. So today we have Flavia Rusterholz, who is a PhD student. So maybe to start off with, can you tell me a little bit about what your research project is? You're a third-year PhD student. So what's your project and who are you working with? Who's your supervisor?
Yeah, so my supervisor is Darren Kandau. So I'm going to be doing creatine research. Well, I'm already on it pretty much. I am looking at the effect of resistance band training in elderly, so people over the age of 50, and see if creatine increases in their strength and their endurance, and also a power factor in there.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about how you're doing your research? Like, what does your research look like, your design, or how you're collecting your data?
Yeah, so I usually do it in two parts.
Okay.
Well, I start off with training them and showing them how to use the bands. And then I go into a first baseline test. And in the baseline test, I do all of balance testing, and next is going to be ultrasound testing, where I look at the sizes of their muscle and also the fat that lays on top of the muscle. And then I also do some body composition testing on them, where we're looking at lean mass versus fat mass. And the next session that I do with them is the strength training session. So I look at upper body muscular power, where they're throwing a medicine ball and see how far they get. And then also endurance on the leg and chest press, as well as 1 repetition max on leg and chest press.
So lots of measurements.
Yeah, lots of measurements.
So maybe one thing I'm going to do right now is kind of talk a little bit about how research is often portrayed as it's very linear, progresses kind of the way that you want it to. But I think that's a bit of a myth. Doesn't always work that way. Have you found in your own research, and I know you're at the data collection stage, any challenges or bumps or things like that kind of take you off your path or in doing research?
Well, there definitely always is. Sometimes people cancel last minute, so then your schedule gets all messed up, or people drop out of the study because, they get hurt, or they just can't keep up with the workload because all my participants are untrained before they're coming in, and then it's 3 trainings a week, so that might be a lot for some of them, a lot of commitment, they didn't like the supplement that I'm giving them, or, have GI distress with it. So I've seen very little of that, but always kind of happens. So yeah, those are definitely some bumps.
Sure. And I think that's something that I know in my undergrad class I talk a lot about, is that recruitment is always challenging when you're dealing with people. And again, that's the good and the bad. We want them. That's the real experience. But at the same time, you're right, they've got another life. Things happen to them. They drop out or they have to cancel. And so there's a lot of... You have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in the beginning, everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to start this. Yeah. And then, 2 weeks later, oh, actually, I can't do it. It's too much. So it's hard to pick the right participants, and I don't know beforehand. So it's hard, and you just kind of have to make adjustments with that, maybe reduce it to 2 times a week instead of 3 times, or kind of split it up, upper body versus lower body, so they don't take as long, the sessions and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's sometimes those are a good piece of advice of recognizing, particularly in more of the quantitative side of doing research. You do want to control with things, you want to have consistency, but again, sometimes you have to make a bit of a compromise to keep going forward.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty about human research in general, right? We're not lab rats where we can turn on the treadmill and have them work out right away and stop them when we want to. So, and I feel that's also real life, right? Sometimes you get 4 workouts in a week, and then next week only 1. So it's kind of normal in real life. So kind of just adjusting to that.
But I think sometimes we don't talk about that as much in research and in prepping students for realizing this does happen, and you got to be prepared for it, whether there's a plan B or how do you adjust. And I think it doesn't mean that you completely abandon your plans, but it's just understanding that sometimes you have to make some of these slight adjustments to keep having people in and keep moving forward with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch a little bit. I'm going to come back a little bit later to talk about sort of where you're at with what you're learning and what we can do with it. But I want to talk a little bit about you're an international student. So can you tell me where you're from?
I'm from Switzerland.
Okay.
Born and raised.
Okay. And what brought you to Regina?
Well, I did my undergrad in Florida
Yeah.
and my master's as well. And then I was looking for a doctorate spot.
Yeah.
And I came across Darren Kandau. I read a lot of his research
Yeah.
beforehand. I was a volleyball player, so I've been taking creatine and I've been liking
okay.
creatine. So I came across his studies and connected with him, and he had a spot open. So it was a great opportunity for me that I had to jump on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know? Okay, I'm probably not going to know the answer to this. Did you know much about Regina before you came?
Absolutely not.
I kind of expected that's where it was going to go.
Yeah, he asked me, Darren asked me over a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced the winter? And I was like, oh yeah, grew up in Switzerland, but turned out this is a different kind of winter. This is a different caliber.
Yes,
I can now
is.
confidently say I know what a winter is.
But you're right. You're coming from a very mountainous country, but it is.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Oh no, that
No.
wind, that
Yeah.
gets you.
Which happens throughout the year, unfortunately, it does. So maybe we can move into a little bit of like, what were some of the shifts or the cultural shifts of coming to perhaps Regina, but maybe Canada in general, about what was different or what did you have to adjust to? Wind being one of them.
Okay, yeah, wind, definitely. I would say, I guess like comparing it to Florida, because
Yeah,
that's like the place that I was before. It was so different because I felt very secluded here. Like, you know, everyone doesn't really like to go out, doesn't really like spend a lot of time outside. And obviously I came in like September, so I had 2 weeks of good weather and then went downhill real quick. So it felt really like in Florida, everyone's out about and going to the beach and, always things to do because you can just take your bike or whatever and ride around. But here it's different. You have to be very creative of like what you can do in the winter. So yeah.
So
I think that was a big
have you
adjustment.
adapted to that, or what are some of the things that you've done to kind of, I don't want to say cope because it seems like it's like horrible. It's just different. It's just different.
Yeah, no, it's not horrible by any means, but it's different. And I guess, I like found ways, like I found some really good friends and I found some, rec volleyball around in town. So keeping myself busy with that. And my research is also keeping me very busy here.
Yep.
So I have a lot of research on the weekend as well. So just taking up a lot of time. Keeping yourself busy really is kind of how I cope with it.
Right.
And then I work really hard and then I take a week off and go to the mountains and ski or hike.
Yes,
That's
you get your mountain time.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I keep my sanity here.
Okay. Well, I think everyone does. I think everyone does in their own way. Is there something maybe that you're surprised about in Regina that you didn't think that you would get access to, or that you would have the opportunity that maybe exists here that maybe didn't exist in Florida? Maybe not. And if there isn't, that's okay.
No, I definitely think there is. Like at this university, I am basically, I don't want to say begged because that might be the wrong word, but I'm basically begged to teach, which really exposes me to, public speaking, management skills, and just standing in front of so many people, and like being in charge, and I make my own exams, my own slides and everything. So I think that might be something I wouldn't have had to the same degree at a different school.
Right.
So this is definitely some real good exposure that I'm getting here. And that is a huge positive to me for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we've always seen as important, is particularly at the PhD level. We don't want to exploit students, but we also know we have a need for more people to teach, and it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity, as you just said, to learn those skills about what's it like to create an exam, what's it like to public speak, be prepared every week for some of those things that prepares you when you get out.
Yeah. And I also got the opportunity to be the sports nutrition coach here. So that's another huge thing for me, obviously. I've been enjoying it so much. So it's been really fun to, always read into nutrition and keep also challenging myself. And, I have to answer all these questions that come thrown at me because, and also just realizing that some people like it a different way and I can't force it on them, even though I might know better, but I need to kind of find like a happy medium. So it's a lot of like, maybe like, how do you say, kind of like finding a balance, a
Yeah.
happy medium
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that is something that we do offer, not to every student, but there are opportunities to work as well in some of these areas. Like you said, is nutrition. We have people working in fitness. There are people, again, doing more other things. Is that something that you wanted to do, or is that something that maybe just came along and kind of was like, oh, it's just an interesting opportunity?
I never saw myself in a
Oh, okay.
position like that.
Yeah.
But when I got asked, because I
Yeah.
do have that certificate of sports nutrition,
Yeah.
so I was like, why not? I do
Okay.
like nutrition. And then
Yeah.
actually turned out I've been thinking about doing a master's of nutrition after this because I really fell in love with nutrition.
Yeah.
So yeah, or just like staying in the nutrition
Yeah.
world. I don't know
Yeah.
if I do want to do
Sure.
the master's after or whatnot, but like I think just staying in that nutrition
Mm-hmm.
world and yeah, keep going with that for sure. Yeah.
So that's a nice opportunity in some ways. And again, it's not always for every student, but that idea to explore something else that you could add either to your CV or what you're interested in, and just having that opportunity to do that. is
Yeah,
pretty
absolutely.
cool.
And just
Yeah.
like maybe even building my own business on the
Yeah.
side, you know, teaching and then
Yeah.
building my own business with nutrition on the sides or something. Yeah.
So again, coming back a little bit to being an international student, which is, and we know not everyone comes to Regina. People don't know much about it. What advice would you give to other international students about thinking about coming to U of R or coming to Regina, and what's that like?
Get a long jacket.
Okay. Yes. I do tell a lot of my students, you better get a thick jacket. Like
Yeah.
the biggest that you can get, because I'm used to it, but a lot of it's a shock.
Yeah. Other than that, I think just keep an open mind. You'll probably get a lot of opportunities that you never thought you'd get, and say yes to everything.
Okay.
Just explore the path. If you don't
Yeah.
like it, you know, there's
Right.
always a way out, but saying yes to everything for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
I think some of it, I would also say too, is that yes, there is the shock of the cold. Like I'm not going to dismiss that's obviously there, but I think sometimes people don't realize how sunny it is, for example, here, or that, you know, it's an easy place to get around. So there's other things that are a benefit that we don't talk a lot about. That you're right. There's not the
Yeah.
nightlife. There's not some of these other things, but it's also easy to get to and from. It is less expensive than other places. So there are some other benefits.
Absolutely, there are benefits, and
Yeah.
I think just always keep looking for it,
Yeah.
you know, and also, again, staying open-minded to
Yeah.
all the opportunities that are here. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you're closing yourself off, there's no opportunities. But
True.
if you are, you know, showing interest and want to be the best of yourself, then there will also be opportunities for you here.
That's a really good point. So I'm going to come back now to a
Yeah.
little bit about where you're at with your project. So, and again, you're not done yet. You're not done data collection. Is that right?
No, I'm not done yet.
Okay. So, but do you have some preliminary, like what are you finding?
So overall, everyone or mostly
Yeah.
everyone has been doing better.
Oh,
So like
okay.
especially in the strength part,
Yeah.
that's where I see a lot of improvement. But it is kind of to be expected, right?
Yeah.
I have people that have never worked out before in their life or just not
Yeah.
for the past, you know, few years or whatnot. So I'm seeing definitely strength improvements, which is, you know, amazing to see. And other than that, it's like, it's hard to say with like balance and whatnot. I don't really see too much improvement there, but
Sure.
there's the testing that needs to be
Okay.
done first. But just the people coming back and telling me they like working out now, or that they feel stronger and they're, you know, playing with their grandkids is way easier and things like that. That's really awesome to hear. Just rewarding in
Yeah.
that sense.
Well, maybe just go a little bit further with that, because I think there is more recent research that suggests that strength training is important as you age. I think we've often thought about this as something when you're younger and like it's only for people who are competitive athletes. What are some of those other benefits for people who are 50 plus to actually do strength training?
Yeah, there is definitely benefits. And as you said, there is research, recent research has come out with that. You know, the most important thing is that even as we're getting older, we are still able to build muscle and still able to become stronger and whatnot. So some people just think they just got to accept getting older,
Right.
but that is not how it is. So this is really awesome that my study and, other studies are really showing that now that, you can get stronger still. So other than that, just flexibility that has improved. I saw that quite a bit as well, which is awesome to see. And, again, with the balance, it's hard to say right now because I haven't really analyzed the data yet. But even if they're saying, they're feeling better, because balance obviously is super important to prevent falls and stuff while we're getting older. So, yeah, just keeping them on their toes with it.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's that idea too. It builds their confidence, so they don't feel, that that they feel confident in the winter when it's icy, or that they don't feel like that they're always going to like fall and break something. That maybe this builds a little bit more like I'm still in good shape.
Absolutely. And I feel like the bands was a really easy way to ease in for them because, they can do it at home. So there's not that, gym shaming where they're feeling, oh, I'm intimidated or other people are looking at me or whatnot. So they can do it in their safe space at home or wherever they want to do it. And also like it was helping them to kind of get into the exercises, right? Like bands, dumbbells, kettlebells, like in the end, it's all the same exercises.
Yeah.
You can just do it with different things. So it's awesome that they kind of get more confident. And now I have a lot of people that come back and say, I hated the bands, which is fine.
Yeah.
I can't serve everyone, but at least they're like, well, I hated the bands, but I like that I've been working out a lot. Like I feel better. So now they're like more open to go to the gym, get a gym membership and, work with free weights or whatnot.
Yeah.
So this is amazing either way,
Yeah, and I think that's nice to kind of give them some options that if they want to do the bands and they like the bands, that's fine. But it's easily adaptable, as you said, to kettlebells or free weights or other things that. So it's just the point, as you said.
Right. It's just a movement anyway. So if they have the movement down, they can use whatever they prefer.
Yeah. So I want to end with just again a few more sort of advice kinds of things about you're nearing the end of your third year. So what would you tell first year Flavia about what grad school is like at a PhD level?
Be prepared to spend a lot of time in the lab.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was, I think the PhD is very, very much testing the perseverance more than like actually my knowledge, maybe.
Okay.
I think it's more of like, how much am I willing to put in for this, title or degree in that sense. Obviously the knowledge like was tested as well, and that was tough as well, but nothing that you can't do on just prepare yourself to work hard. And
I think that's an interesting point though too, that I do see the PhD as some level of perseverance because it's long. It is long. And you can have your highs and your lows and things are going well and they're not. But some of it is obviously knowledge and expertise and you're building it. But some of it is like, you just have to get through it. And it's hard.
I agree.
So what do you do to push yourself to persevere?
I think I just really enjoy it.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's good.
Reading research has gotten so much easier. I think in the beginning, it took me, days to read a 40-page paper. And now it takes me, 30 minutes max. So I think I just really like reading about it and I like learning more about it. And I feel like I'm challenged every day. And I think I need that. I need to be challenged or I'll get bored. So just always finding something new that you can learn to keep yourself, motivated as well.
So I think you've hit upon a couple of things. One of them is just realizing that the more you do it, some of these things get easier.
Absolutely.
I know I had the conversation with you about reading in one of the classes, and I'm sure probably everyone in the room was like rolling their eyes, like really, like this is going to get easier, but it does. It really does. Like you learn to summarize really quickly or just look for what you're really interested in. But when you start, that doesn't make sense. So it takes time. But I think you've also hit upon the idea of, I think a critical part about being a really good grad student is that curiosity and that interest to just keep pushing yourself. And it gets not that it gets easier, but as you said, it keeps you motivated. Those are some really, really important, I think, messages.
Yeah. And the more you read into it, the better you get at understanding those concepts, because the concepts basically stay the same, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever research you're reading, it pretty much is the same. So now, like when I'm listening to science podcasts and whatnot, I really find they're, like, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I already knew that. Or like, I understand the concept, so it makes sense. And I don't know, I always find it fun.
But I think, but what you're also saying too is like, don't get discouraged at the beginning when you don't understand concepts. Like it'll come. You're not expected to know what every jargon or concept or thing like that is. But the more you read, the more it becomes familiar and very.
But the more you read, the more questions you have and the more answers you're looking for. So that might also be a little spiral there.
I would just laugh because I think the more you know, the less you know. Because in some ways it's the idea that because you get more curious, you want to learn more. So it's never ending.
Yeah.
It never does end. But that's part of the joy, is kind of realizing there's always another step. There's always something more I can learn. And I think in some ways there's a certain personality that loves that part of it's never complete.
Yeah.
But you feel more confident with what you know, but you also know there's always unknowns. There's always other things that you can keep doing.
Yeah, and just also always staying up to date, right?
Yeah.
Like everything's changing at all times, right? So especially in our field with research. So it's really interesting to, always read something new, and maybe you've already read that, but there's maybe one little thing that's already changed. So then there's, again, new opportunities that open up and whatnot. So
for sure. So maybe I'm going to end with, do you have advice? Because I think moving up to the PhD, it's longer, it's more intense. As you said, like you get tested on your knowledge, you do, with going through things like comp and the proposal. So what advice would you say to someone who wants to go into PhD, like either what to expect or what they should think about coming in to do their doctorate?
Come prepared to work hard and to stay curious, and you will be criticized. It's part of it. Yeah. Take criticism well. And also you have to like to read research and to write. There's a lot of writing. And just asking for a lot of professionalism in the field itself.
I like the point, like sort of ending to just both on the reading and the writing, because it seems so basic, but it's intense. It is absolutely intense. But I will say, like you just said, as someone who's done this for my career, the more you do it, the more it becomes, it doesn't necessarily always get super easy, but it is easier. It's easier to write. It's easier to read more. But you realize like those are the foundations of what we do as a researcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you have to keep working at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, the writing is always difficult because you're also always with the research, you're peer reviewed and whatnot, right? So there's always people that will not like your writing or just certain things about that they don't like. So just staying open to even learning new things about writing, which you think you might already be great at. And you might not be. So
well, it wasn't a laugh, but it was just I've seen my writing change over time, and just also realized again it's a constant evolution. How I wrote 20 years ago is different than how I write now, and understanding there's different ways of writing for different audiences. There's changes in that, and I just, as you just said, I have to be open to it as well. That's part of my progress. So
absolutely.
But we do have to think of like it is a constant progress. It kind of doesn't stop, but in some ways that's part of the joy and the pain of it at the same time.
Yeah. So definitely probably my biggest advice to just stay curious, right? To stay curious, to evolve, stay curious to, learn new things for
I love
being a good student.
That's great. So that's the last question that I have. So is there anything else that you want to share, either about your experiences as international student or a PhD student that you think someone else would be interested in?
I think as an international student, it's always tough in the first few months or, just adapting to it and whatnot. But I think just staying open to it and, trusting the process and following what you think is right and following what you really strive for. So,
I think it is important to realize that it's probably not going to be easy for a couple of months as it's change and there's lots of things that are changing. But I think the more that you're open, the more you start to settle and sort of realize it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And you just
it's going to be stressful.
Yeah.
In the first, few months.
Yep.
And it will get stressful again,
It will.
There's always phases where it's more stressful than others. But I think especially as an international, just, remembering why you came here and like what your goals are to keep you motivated and going, even though you might be really far from home and far from family and far from comfortable. So just trying to constantly adapt to the situation.
All right. Well, thanks, Flavia, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Awesome. That's good. Thank you.